One of the things we hear from our clients time and time again when we ask them about their goals is that they want to make things as easy as possible for their families. And one of the best ways to start on that path is to avoid probate. I'm Jackie Bedard, founder of Carolina Family Estate Planning, and today I'm going to share with you what probate is, why you want to avoid it, and the best way to avoid probate. Now first, if you're not familiar with what probate is, it's essentially a court process where the court babysits your family while they're handling your financial affairs because you're not able to do it for yourself. Now, most people think probate is about what happens when you die, but there is actually two types of probate. There's also living probate if you become incapacitated and you're unable to handle your affairs. Now, one of the reasons why people usually complain about probate and want to try and avoid it is anytime we have a court process involved, generally that means it's going to take longer, it's going to cost more in legal fees, and a lot of people don't like that it becomes public record. So anyone that's nosy, they can find out what you owned, who's getting what from your estate, and so forth. So let's talk about how to avoid probate. The best way to avoid probate is with a fully funded revocable living trust. Now you might be thinking, can I just put a beneficiary designation on my account so that I can keep it out of probate? And while that might work for one specific account, we run into a few issues. First, most people have some assets that don't have the option for a beneficiary designation. Things like automobiles, real estate, personal property, and other assets generally don't have beneficiary designations on them. The other issue that we run into is those beneficiary designations don't help us avoid living probate if that should ever be an issue for you. So a fully funded revocable living trust is generally your best option for fully avoiding probate. And if you're not familiar with what a revocable living trust is, think of it like a rule book. You write a rule book that sets forth how you want your assets and financial affairs managed. And within that rule book, you say, here's who I appoint as trustee to carry out these rules on my behalf. Now, usually you appoint yourself as your initial trustee so that you can continue to manage things while you're healthy and able. And then within the rule book, you say, hey, if the day ever comes where I become incapacitated or I pass away, here's who's going to step in as successor trustee and take over for me. And they're going to follow this rule book that I set forth. Now, the other important part of that rule book is within there, it says, if I become incapacitated or I pass away and my successor trustee steps in, they don't have to be babysat by the court. They can handle this process privately and they don't have to go through probate. Now, the revocable part on that rule book, what that means is that you can change your mind down the road. So if you create this rule book and at some point you want to change the rules, or if you want to revoke it and undo it entirely, you still have the power to do that. Now, this is the critical step. I mentioned that it needs to be a fully funded revocable living trust. You see, what most people do is they go and they create the rule book and they stop there, but that's actually not enough to avoid probate. So let's take the analogy one step further. We're going to take that rule book and we're going to attach it to the side of a box. And the rule book only applies to anything that we put in that box. That's what we call the process of funding your trust. What we mean by that is we need to update the titling or beneficiary designations on your account so that they all go into that box and they all pass according to that rule book that you set forth. Otherwise, anything that's still outside of the box is still potentially going to be subject to probate. Now, the issue that most people run into is they go and they create their rule book and then they never follow through with the second step. In fact, most law firms don't help their clients with the second step. That's one of the ways that our firm is different. We help with the funding process. We start by creating an asset report for you that line by line outlines what needs to happen with each of your accounts. And then we help prepare the paperwork to help you carry out those transactions. So if it sounds like a lot of work to you, don't worry because we make the process as easy as possible for you. Now, if you're still watching, I know that this can all be a little bit confusing. I've tried really hard not to get us bogged down in legalese and jargon along the way. So if you still need help figuring out the best way for you to avoid probate or the best planning options for your family's unique situation, give us a call and we'll help you figure out the best way to get started.